Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. So for this one we're going to go to Japan, and this is my first Japanese beer review in maybe 100 videos or something crazy like that. But we're going to revisit a brewery that are becoming kind of very prominent in the world of craft beer in the English speaking world as well as worldwide. So we're going to return to the Kiuchi Brewery, who are from Naka in Tokyo Prefecture in Japan, and we're going to try one of the Hitachino Nest beers, this time the Amber Ale. Now I've reviewed already for you the White Ale, the Red Rice Ale, and also the XH Extra Strong, and these guys, they're really beautiful beers, so you know, check them out if you do get the chance, and they're quite widely available in Scotland and indeed in America and things like that these days, so be sure to check out the Hitachino Nest beers if you do get the chance. On this video as well, I want to give a shout out to my friends in Japan, Victoria in Tokyo and also Michiko in Osaka, so hello to you guys there. Since this is my first Japanese beer in quite a long time, I'll give you guys a shout out. But anyway, as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll go through a brief history of the brewery as I always do, but as I always say, if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, then feel free to go on towards the latter part of the video and you will catch that particular segment. And as always, the brewery website's in the video description there for you below, along with the links to my other Hitachino Nest beer reviews. So anyway, as I mentioned to you, this brewery is from Ibraki Prefecture in Japan, about 80 miles north of Tokyo if you like, and it's actually brewed by the Kiuchi Brewery like I was mentioning, and this brewery was founded in 1823 by Kiuchi Gihei, whose family were actually collecting rice from the fields as tax for the Mito Tokugawa family. But the brewery started with the idea of using up the remaining rice stalks to make sake. Now, Kiuchi himself was actually a good friend of Fujita Toku, who was one of the activists in the revolutionary Tokugawa movement in Japanese politics, and he actually named one of his sakes, Kikusakari, as a respectful gesture to the Emperor of Japan. Now, Mikio Kiuchi inherited the brewery from his father after the Second World War in 1950, and this was at a time where the Japanese economy was really growing very rapidly, and the sake industry was actually growing very quickly at that time as well due to the increasing demand. And the Kiuchi Brewery at this time actually prided themselves in the fact that they maintained brewing quality by selecting the best ingredients and brewing processes rather than simply sort of scaling up their brewing process to meet the ever-growing demand, if you like. But the Hitachino Nest series of beers themselves were actually founded in 1996 with the unique owl logo that you can kind of see on the bottle here. But the brewery has actually kind of grabbed a lot of attention. Their beers that they're producing, like I mentioned to you, are really good beers. I've been very impressed with the ones I've reviewed for you already, and a lot of people in the craft beer world are actually very impressed with this brewery. But the brewery are particularly interesting because they combine the sort of European brewing techniques with traditional Japanese brewing methods. So it's a really kind of cool brewery, if you like, that they're taking the sort of really old school Japanese things and sort of combining them with the sort of modern day brewing techniques from America and Europe. But they brew beer, sake, which is rice wine, and also shochu, which is a beverage kind of typically distilled from barley, sweet potatoes, buckwheat, rice, and sometimes also brown sugar. Usually it's about 25%, but shochu is typically made with sakakasu, which is the byproduct of sake brewing. So they're brewing the sort of traditional Japanese stuff as well as brewing the craft beer. The craft beer is a relatively new thing to them. As I said, 1996 was when the Hitachino Nest series of beers was founded. But more recently, the company have actually also been expanding into the wine part of the business, and they've actually purchased land next to the brewery to create a vineyard, which they're in the process of actually building up just now. And this included the import of Merlot and Chardonnay vines from France, so you can expect to see wine from the Kiuchi Brewery in the next little while as well. But just to list the brewers, that's your brief history of the Kiuchi Brewery there. But just to list the other beers that you can get from this brewery, you have the Weizen, you have the Pale Ale, the Amber Ale, which is this guy here, the Red Rice Ale, that one I've reviewed for you already, the Espresso Stout, the Sweet Stout, the White Ale, XH Strong Ale, those two I've reviewed for you already, the Japanese Classic Ale, Ginger Ale, which I will review for you soon, and also the Celebration Ale. But they also have recently added a very cool beer called Nipponia, and this is brewed with a special type of Japanese barley called Kanego Golden. and it uses a special strain of Japanese Sorachi Ace hops, but it's only available in America and Japan apparently. So hopefully I can get that for you in the near future and review that for you when I go over to Japan or over to the States. Actually, a lot of travel plans kind of in the mix at the moment, if you like. So we'll see what happens there. But I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this bottle here. This guy is a 5.5% amber ale, and apparently it uses Chinook hops, so you can expect some sort of spice, pine and herbal flavours from that. It also uses the Cascade hop, so you expect some sort of aromatic spice and citrus character with it, and it also has a malt base of Maris Otter, Munich, Crystal, chocolate and black malts as well. So I'll just bring up the camera, let you have a really nice little look at the artwork on this one. As I mentioned to you, it's got the nice Japanese characters in here, and you can see the owl just sitting in his hole in the tree there, and that owl is on the bottle cap here. Still getting issues with the light actually, but it's a very cool looking at bottle there. You can see the sort of Japanese architecture just on the top label there. It's not focusing too well on that, but anyway, as I mentioned to you, a 5.5% amber ale, Chinook and Cascade hops in this guy, Maris Otter, Munich, Crystal, chocolate and black malt. So let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting here. Oh, didn't open that very well actually. It's not. This guy didn't really want to open for some reason, but okay, we're sorted now. So let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting here. I really don't know what happened with the bottle opener there, but that kind of happens sometimes when you're doing these beer reviews. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting here. It's actually looking very dark for an amber ale actually. A kind of almost a reddish kind of dark red amber I would say with this guy, which is quite unusual I would say. It smells, you can get a lot of nice aromas off this actually, but if I hold this up to the light here, if I hold it up to the light, it actually looks like a red ale, to be honest. It looks like an imperial red ale, and there's a nice sort of beigey head on this one, a frothy head. You can see it's gone down from a finger to just about a half finger ahead there, but it's a really beautiful looking beer actually. But I would definitely stick with that. I mean, it does look like an imperial red ale. I don't know if I bring the light up if you can see that a little bit better, but it definitely, to me, it looks like a sort of red winey colour. It's a very dark for an amber ale. Usually you would expect it to be quite a bit brighter than that, like I say, but a nice sort of tan frothy head on it there. It's got just a little bit of carbonation going up to the top of it as well. A really beautiful looking beer actually. So let's give it a whiff and see how we get on here. Very kind of dark fruity smelling actually on this one. Quite an interesting aroma. So there's a lot of kind of rich caramel malt in here I would say. And definitely there's some sort of grain and cereal in there. It's got, you can smell the sort of dark chocolate in it as well. It really has, you can pick up that sort of chocolate malt that they're saying is in the malt base there definitely. And you can smell just a little bit of roasted character too, which must be the black malts. But it's definitely a sort of dark, fruity-ish, dark fruit and roasted caramel flavour on this. You can just get a little hint of the chocolate in it too. A very interesting smelling beer. Just spend a little time with all the Hitachino Nest beers. Just spend a little time and actually concentrate on the aroma bit. There's really nice aromas in these beers. But yeah, it's a really nice smelling beer. Like I say, just take a little bit of time and get used to it. But it's got a nice roasted caramel malt base in it there with a little bit of chocolate and stuff. And it's got some really nice sort of dark fruity aromas. You can pick up maybe just a little bit of pine resin in there too. But it's got a little bit of kind of candy sweet sort of fruitiness to it as well. That sort of Haribo kind of fruit aroma to it. It's quite an interesting one. But let's get on with the tasting here anyway. Quite dark, definitely quite dark actually. So in the beginning, definitely very malty. Opening up with that kind of nice caramel base there. It's slightly roasted, but there's a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness to it as well. And I think I'm getting the feeling with this guy that there is just a little bit of sort of cereal spice to it as well. Picking up just a little bit of kind of a roasted kind of grainy feel to this one. yeah, there's definitely some sort of cereal kind of contributing to the malt base there. And it does have a little bit of roasted character to it, but you're picking up the caramel sweetness on the opening, definitely. But the cereal spice in this, that's the contribution of both the Chinook and the Cascade hop. You do get a little bit of a spicy palate with both of those. There's a little underlying sort of hint of pine resin in there. It does smell like it has some dark fruits in it, but they're quite, if they're very, very subtle in the taste in comparison with the aroma. There's some nutty flavours in there too, I think. Very, very complex beer, you know. Just sit and take a few sips of this and just see what you think of it. Pardon me. But yeah, definitely, like I'm saying, open up with that nice little bit of roasted caramel. There is perhaps in the aftertaste is when you're starting to get the sort of chocolate and roasted character in it. I would definitely say that. They're coming out more in the aftertaste rather than during when you actually have the liquid in your mouth. So they're coming out just sitting in the middle of the tongue, just as you go into the aftertaste there, and you've got a nice little bit of the kind of hoppy freshness around the edge of your tongue. But definitely, that sort of candied fruity flavour that I was saying was in the aroma. You're picking up just a little bit of that on the edges of the tongue as you get into the aftertaste as well. The aftertaste definitely is of the sort of chocolate and roasted malts, and you're getting that kind of sweet fruitiness just around the edge of the tongue there. But you're opening up, as I say, with a nice kind of sweet roasted caramel base. You have just a nice little bit of cereal spice complementing that malt base quite well. Then you're moving into the hop part of the beer, and you're getting just a little bit of a kind of mild pine resin flavour in there too, which is the contribution mainly of the Chinook, I think, is where you'll start to get that out. But it's a very, very complex beer, you know. Just take some time and actually try and think of all the flavours you're picking up with this. This is one of the most complex ones I've actually reviewed so far. Hell of a lot of flavours in here actually. But in terms of the mouthfeel with this one, I would say definitely mid-bodied. It's got a slightly oily mouthfeel to it. The carbonation does have a little bit of activity about it actually, which is quite interesting. But there's a nice smoothness to it as well. And it's not, to me, it's not really bitter until you get into the aftertaste, and that's when you're starting to get the sort of roasted flavour, and that is really what's kind of contributing to the sort of bitter character of this beer, if you like. Yeah, well, to be fair, now that I think about it a little bit more, the pine resin is kind of contributing to that too. But the roasted sort of black malts that are in this, in the aftertaste, are contributing to a sort of kind of underlying malt base, which is an underlying bitterness, sorry, which is really cool. But overall, this is a really interesting beer, and like I say, it's one of the more complex ones that I've actually reviewed for you. There's a hell of a lot of flavour in here, and obviously with a craft beer, that's what you want. And as I've said to you, the Hitachino Nest Brewery, the Hitachino Nest series of beers from the Kiuchi Brewery are really, really beautiful. So if you get the chance, definitely check them out. But this is a really, really interesting one, and it's one, in my opinion, that's a tasting beer. If you get one of these, you know, just sit and think about the flavours that are in this, and once you kind of have a good idea of where it's going, have another one and just enjoy it, you know. Definitely a tasting beer, this one. This would actually be a good beer to eat with a steak, I think. It would go really, really well with that, in my opinion. And just enjoy the sort of nice dark flavours of it. A really, really complex beer that I would say, just think about this beer and see what you're getting out of it. Pardon me, sorry. But yeah, some of the other beers from the Kiuchi Brewery are very sessionable. But this one, I would say, isn't quite a bit as sessionable. It's got a little bit more of alcohol warmth to it, but I think that's also the sort of roasted kind of malts in there contributing to that. It does feel as if it has a little bit of alcohol warmth, but it is only a 5.5% beer. But it's a very, very nice one nonetheless. So my advice to you is, if you want to try this beer, be prepared to have one that's a little bit more difficult to think about. and just enjoy all the different types of flavours that are in there. Very, very complex, like I say. So anyway, the summary of this review, check out the Kiuchi Brewery's Hitachino Nest beers. Very, very beautiful things. There are some very, very sessionable ones in there. This is more of a tasting beer. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my beer review. If you have, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. As always, if you have tried this beer yourself, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on it. It is always helpful to hear that. And I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I will be back with another Hitachino Nest beer for you in the very near future. Hopefully I won't be coughing as much in this one. I've had a really kind of bad sort of throat infection and stuff, but beer will help me recover on that, I'm sure. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews, and I will be back soon with another one. Cheers.